Hey, good day, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Truck Focus podcast. I'm super excited for today just because the conversation's something that I feel is missing in the industry. And I have two experts that I definitely know they know what they're doing. That's going to highlight just some really important components. So we're talking recruitment from a carrier's perspective, but also from a driver's perspective. And we'll get into some nitty gritties in there. So first off, we have Oriana Kolonsky. Oriana is a product manager, a workforce strategist, labor's relation expert, and an industry advocate like myself. So as a product manager and an owner of an industry workforce development of Canada, Oriana promotes opportunities within the transportation industry, enhances workplace development, human resources services, while also providing labor strategies and expertise. I also have Heidi Pittman. So Heidi is a CPHR member, and she's collaborated, on a variety of products with the AMTA in transportation space. Since 2017, she's been actively involved in the transportation recruitment space. Her family also has a really rich history in the transportation industry, so which really inspired her just to get deeper into the root causes of different challenges our industry has, but also to find solutions for them. So like I said, I'm excited for today's episode because of the solutions we're offering, but also to uplift two friends of mine in this space. So let's get to it. Welcome, Oriana and Heidi.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So excited. And I'm happy to have Heidi with us too.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for also slamming my name, Kolonsky. I thought we were friends. Terrible.
How did I pronounce it?
Kolonsky. It's supposed to be Kolonsky.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I did that last episode too. So I thought Kolonsky. Sorry about that. So, okay, Oriana, since you stole the show, why don't you kind of give us a backstory? Who is Oriana Kolonsky?
Good one. Well, Oriana is somebody that entered into the transportation industry actually by chance. I was making some life changes and needed something different for my role, where I was living, kind of everything. And I happened to just apply for a whole bunch of different things and wasn't sure where I wanted or what I wanted. And I happened to get into the Trucking Association in Alberta. My background is in labor relations. I worked and came from the government of Alberta. So employment standards, OH&S, also the immigration aspect in the temporary foreign worker advisory unit. My background is legal, paralegal, and got some human resources and labor relations background. So really just an advocate for the industry, someone who's really interested in, making a difference, helping people and growing employers' businesses as well as workers, and trying to get more youth and women into the industry and more underrepresented groups and newcomers as well. So that's just a little bit about me.
Incredible. Yeah, you're a rock star. And it's funny, whenever I think about Oriana, I'm just going to fluff a little bit of my excitement because I appreciate what you bring to the industry. I like that you use terms like advocacy. I stand for, I represent, because ownership, I think, is the base of confidence. And when other people that don't feel confident can say, hey, Oriana can do it, she's strong, I'm going to be strong. So I think that was really important to spotlight Oriana, because that definitely is a really good way that you're impacting a lot of lives in our industry. And it's just, I appreciate our friendship and the impact that you're having. So it's good to have you here.
Thanks for fluffing it up.
No problem. Anytime. How about you, Heidi? Who is Heidi?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say you stumbled into the transport industry by accident. I kind of definitely did as well. It came from distribution. Like Josh had mentioned before, my family has a pretty rich history of transport. So I was around that all the time, both with the farming industry and the long haul industry, US, Canada long haul. But I never thought that I myself would land there. So after working HR and distribution, I ended up, because the company was closing because of a closure, landing a transport recruitment position. And I had no idea what I was in for when I got into this role, and just how complex the industry is, especially because there's a big change into the technology space right now. And you're taking a pretty, what I call analog, or traditionally analog industry, and adding the digital side to it. So big change management initiatives going on in that space right now. And so there's really kind of a HR aspect, even in the recruitment role. And then driver retention is huge, and we're losing our drivers for a lot of different reasons, class 1 drivers. So my role encompassed both recruitment and retention. And then, through that, a bit of DE&I as well. So trying to, again, diversify. And Oriana, I met you through a AMTA transport initiative to, like you say, engage the younger workers and try to work on some of that retention in the industry. And so my goals now are to kind of help liaison drivers into that more technical space, applying online and using e-logs and all that sort of stuff.
Incredible. Yeah, there's a massive undertaking from a carrier standpoint and a massive learning curve from both driver and carrier standpoint with technology. And I'm an advocate for automation and paperless and ELDs, but when you're working with different people that maybe it's their second language, or maybe they're just an older generation, being mindful of the fact that maybe us three can figure out an iPhone quite quickly where others definitely can't is important to keep front of mind. Because yeah, if that makes them look bad, even though they're really good at what you're hiring them to do, I think that's important to be mindful for. But yeah, I'm interested to hear more throughout our conversation, Heidi, on that side as well. So I guess, Heidi, if you want to start with this question, then Oriana, I'd like to hear your perspectives in maybe same question, but a different view. But from a recruiter standpoint, how do you feel a recruitment and a retention overlap? Do you feel that they're necessary for both, or how does that work?
Well, it's funny because if you run your retention program correctly, then you wouldn't have any recruitment, right? In theory. So you don't want to run yourself out of a job. If you cover both of those aspects, then you're probably good, because if you do the recruitment side too well, then that means you're doing well on the retention side. The reality of the transport industry is that you're always going to have some turnover, and the demographics are definitely changing. So sorry, was your question, how are they related? I forget now where I was going with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, they're definitely related. I would say that when you're recruiting, you have to take retention in mind, right? Like your end goal is definitely to find someone who you're going to keep for a long period of time. So how are companies looking to retain their workers, provide good programs, provide support, diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also financial support, and making sure that those drivers are maybe getting a piece of the pie through profit share or great benefit programs, RSP programs, that sort of a thing. So definitely you have to consider in both.
Awesome. And then Oriana, in your experience working with labor, working with workforce, do you think carriers have the right, processes in place, the consideration for does long-term employment, that kind of stuff, or what have you seen in that space?
Well, yeah, it depends on the carrier, the employer. When I look at from a labor relations standpoint, recruitment and retention do go hand in hand. Like Heidi said, though, if you had a perfect retention, policy or a program in place, you wouldn't have anybody applying. So, but when it comes to labor relations, maybe the workforce aspect of people or employers, you need to make sure that you have the proper policies in place. You have a good knowledge of the legislation, of the current upcoming legislation. You make sure that you look at these employees as people and that they're human. And when there are issues of, maybe potential violations, or, an employee comes to you with a bullying issue or harassment, or somebody, Joe has, done this, it's really important to make sure that you implement the proper things down, you write them down, you look after that employee though, first and foremost. And that's going to help you with that retention. So having those proper policies and the legislation in place is a big aspect and component of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's nice to hear, because they're the same conversation, but I think it's a different professionalism, where if from a recruitment standpoint, all these things matter, but also from labor's relations, all these things matter. So I guess that's the point I was trying to get across is there an overlap and do they matter? And I think the answer is yes.
Well, and I guess on that note too, Josh, is that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, kind of did, but because I was forgotten what I was trying to say sometimes in the moment, and really the recruitment and retention aspect in the labor relations component of it is that, you know, you're not going to have employees working for you if you're not treating them properly. If you don't have these policies in place or you're not actually following the legislation, the minimum requirements are in place for a reason. Mm-hmm. And going above and beyond that, I always recommend employers to, you know, provide maybe more, you know, maternity leave or whatever it may be to add that extra bonus that will also help with that retention and personal days or things like that. However, the other side to that of having or lacking retention and recruiting is that nobody's going to want to come work for you. And you're probably going to get, you know, an employment standards complaint or an OH&S issue and have to go through all kinds of different audits and things that you don't want. So really having those in place is a big aspect to that.
Totally agree. And that kind of goes to the next question. From a recruitment standpoint, Heidi, is there certain things that you in that space have to ask, documents you have to obtain, and you, whatever you're comfortable sharing, do you work with on behalf of a carrier to teach them that too? Or have you done that in the past where if you do need these 5 things, they understand that after you've helped? Or can you kind of walk us through that part?
Yeah. Are you talking about, well, you know, I wish that this would start at the driver training level when they go to their driving school. And I'm sure that we will move things towards that as things get more standardized. But right now in the industry, what we have is kind of many levels, some that are more progressive. So for insurance reasons and following legislation, they do require those 5 things. Not all companies have caught up with that yet. I mean, a few years ago, we went through the tragedy of Humboldt and we saw what happened there where we had an unqualified driver on the road. But any company that's like, say in Alberta, where I'm from, partner in compliance, so PIC carriers are basically saying that they are in compliance with the top legislated things that they need for a driver. So I wish it was 5 things. It's more like 20 things. But yeah, so we as recruiters will educate them as they're applying to us as a carrier. I think industry-wide, there has been a lacking, and no offense to those who are definitely trying to get in there and help. We're progressing slowly to that point, but because of that, the carrier has to kind of educate someone coming in, and you get candidates who say, well, I never had to supply that information to the last carrier or the last 5 carriers, or in 20 years of working in this industry, I've never had to submit that document. Well, the reality of it is that for us, you do. And so trying to educate them as to why we need their personal information. And, you know, it's a big pain for them to apply for a job now. So why do we need you to go out and get all these documents? There's some of them that we've you know, signed up for ourselves to go and collect, but they need to sign off on that. And the digital signing off process can be difficult for some people as well. So again, you're bringing in the digital aspect of the position. And you know what, unfortunately, it creates some barriers. And I think that the more educated that Class 1 drivers or drivers in any aspect are on some of these processes, why they're there and how to do them, the easier that it is to get those applications in and hopefully retain some drivers in the industry.
Absolutely. When we were starting this episode, Oriana and Heidi, you guys were talking about an initiative that you were trying to get off the ground where it's helping people with certain products without talking necessarily about the association or the organization that was through. Oriana, if you want to run with this part, but do you want to kind of walk us through what that initiative was to create awareness?
Which one was that?
More so just talking about the event that was going to happen and then it didn't happen.
This would be the resume writing, and then it kind of morphed into let's engage young drivers.
Okay. Well, I mean, that was quite a while ago.
Sorry, that's just what came to mind.
And Heidi can chime in too. But yeah, the initiative was through a working group, and really the main points to that were to engage different employers through the industry. We wanted to ensure that their voices were heard. We wanted to also hear the drivers. We wanted to try and get components to make it easier for that recruitment aspect for drivers and for carriers, and try and go through that application process and educate them on what should be there, what shouldn't be there, different things that recruiters are looking for, and as well, what a driver really needs, because that is something that I think, like Heidi had mentioned, it would be lovely to see that in the driver training schools, or, when they first get in, whatever training that they take, whether it was privy to MELT, where they could actually have some sort of training on how to help them build a resume, help them to even collaborate with different people within industry like recruiters, and get them that confidence to feel that they are qualified. They just maybe need to amend, things, or to try and make things a little bit differently. So we were planning on kind of building that into an actual event and having guest speakers like Heidi and some other people that have experience or different kinds of qualifications to go through that with those drivers, go through that with the carriers, and help them out, because there are a lot of recruiters, or I'd say companies, that I've recognized or realized in my current work that they don't even have a recruiter or HR. The manager is doing the HR, and he's also doing the safety. So that causes a little bit of a challenge for them, because they don't have the time to dedicate to necessarily find out all the information they need to be compliant in the recruiting aspect, to, cautiously look through resumes, or to even educate the candidates that are coming through, and to guide them through that application process. So this was going to be something really awesome. And I think it's something that actually should probably get back into now that Heidi brought it up. Am I missing anything, Heidi?
No, you said it well. I think that, just to add to that, what you were saying about the managers, and that's very true, that sometimes it's the manager doing everything and they're just catching up on the safety aspect of things. That's one aspect, but they're, and so then to expect them to go on and handle all the labor relations issues and the HR issues and the diversity and inclusion issues, that's a lot. That's going to take years. It's a huge change initiative. And so I think the more help that they can get, the better. And the rest of us need to be patient with that process.
That's right. And on that too, it's amazing to see that. I mean, a lot of the bigger corporations or organizations, carriers, however we want to call them, they have HR. But when we're talking to smaller to even medium-sized companies, a lot of them don't. And it causes a lot of pain points for them. They can't get what they need to do in order to find those qualified or skilled drivers, let alone, like you said, they're just trying to do the status quo and get from point A to B, make sure those deliveries get out. They're worried about costs and hopefully compliance. But even that, it goes and falls into the back burner because they don't have the manpower to be able to do that all. And maybe they are, but I mean, myself, I've been in roles where I've been doing 40 different things at once, thinking I'm a rock star, but am I really doing them all well? Probably not. So that's the challenge, and we're not all educated in every aspect. So it's time. So that is something that we need to work with industry on, because there isn't enough engagement or educational kind of things out there to help those types of employers or managers that may need a little bit more of that guidance.
Agreed. And Heidi, at the beginning, you mentioned technology. And I think that's where technology can really help, because a lot of the times systems can audit what is submitted into the system. And I think people that, like Oriana, you just mentioned, you have 40 job tasks and you're expected to do them all within compliance and legislation, but really well. That's where integration can really help, because as people, unfortunately, we make mistakes, and you can build systems to eliminate some of those mistakes. It's pretty neat. So Heidi, from when you're helping people or when you're looking at a position, so a carrier wants to hire for a position, how would you determine in that space what the ideal candidate would be? Is that a conversation you have with a carrier? Is that something you just know it through your own experience? Like, you want someone to move product A from product B. In my mind, I know what that person looks like, or how do you determine that?
Yeah, well, some of it comes through experience and a little bit of trial and error, listening to the hiring managers. Like when I first started out in transport, like I think about my uncle. I need to hire my uncle. He was a very meticulous driver, kept the truck clean, followed all the rules at the time. The rules, there weren't enough rules, but and then, to listen again to those hiring managers, you're given criteria by the company that you need to meet. But to find an ideal candidate is difficult because there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a bit of competition with other companies. So yeah, to where do you get your knowledge from? Experience, following the rule book, and listening to experts in the field who are going to be able to tell you. Listening to the drivers too. It's interesting when you call someone for a reference check, how much information that you can get, not just on that driver, but on the industry in general, right? And pick up little tidbits along the way, and in your interviews, right? The drivers will tell you what a good driver looks like. And it might not even have anything to do with that particular interview. It might help you in your next one. But, to kind of listen to everyone around you is key.
Yeah, I agree. And Oriana, with your experience, just encouraging more women to get into transportation and under-recognized people, have you had any open conversations when they're not sure, like, am I good enough for this position? Or what if I don't meet their ideal candidate box? Like, what if I don't fit in that box? Have you had any conversations like that with people?
Absolutely. So the biggest thing, especially when it comes to, I'd say, women, and I can speak for that, and I know Heidi can too, is it's self-doubt. It's, we're women. Can we drive such a big truck? Or we can have the ability, like I can't back up my own trailer when I'm going camping. I got my uncle or my dad to do it. So, how the hell am I going to get behind, a big rig and be able to drive? So it's mainly that self-doubt. So it's the lack of confidence. It's also, it's work-life balance. And a lot of women are, while we're still trying to get a lot of them out into bigger and higher roles, and we're diversifying big time, there's still the work-life balance of, I have to be the mom, or there's single moms that don't have that ability to be able to spend that time on the road. So they're not looking for a long-term 2-week stint outside in Texas and driving all the way around Mexico, all the way back here, unless they can maybe take their kids. And I mean, I think back in the day that was more acceptable. Now with safety standards, it's not as easy to do that. Mm-hmm. That's another issue, as well as funding. Funding's been a big thing, and there's amazing programs like Women Building Future. And, there's some training schools now, and the government has helped implement some funding for MELT now, which is a great thing. And to help get people that funding so that they don't have to pay, or they may not be able to afford that $10,000 for that class 1. So that's another barrier. But really the biggest thing is confidence. And to me, it's just women accepting that, we're not going to be perfect at everything when we first start, or, something might be scary, but we got to give it a try. We got to give her. How many times have we done things that we're scared of, and then we've done them and we're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. If you are excited about, big trucks and driving, go give it a chance. And I think there's a lot of different employers that are willing to, some really great ones, take people on and show them and say, hey, do you want to come for a ride? Those are great opportunities or options for people to go and check it out. Go to Women Building Futures, talk to them. Talk to other women drivers. Talk to women within the industry that can give you pointers or give you tips and let you know. There's also the employers in the aspect of not everybody's using, the old Peterbilts and the ones that have, 18 gears. There's a lot of electronics now at play, and there's, the automated kind of trucks more so. But they're just like my F-150. I went in one at one of the carriers I went to, and I jumped in one. I was like, holy crap. like literally you just push buttons and it goes.
Yeah.
The satellite radio, and like I was like, whoa. And the seat was literally like a recliner.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's just overcoming those fears and talking to other women and people within the industry. And that same goes for youth and newcomers. Youth are a little bit more of a challenge in the sense that I think our schools are lacking, or not maybe lacking, but we focus too much on certain roles like dentists, you know, being a lawyer, being a teacher, whereas we kind of forget about the industries. And even you may be able to be a human resource person within trucking, within construction. People don't think about that, and they don't really know what the industry is about. So that's a big kind of lack thereof. And we need more of these programs to help gap those bridges to get more people within the industry and these types of roles.
Totally agree. And that was the advocacy that I started with. So thank you for highlighting.
I could have just kept going. So I got myself up because I could go into newcomers and the challenges there and
Oh God.
language barriers, but I just wouldn't shut up. So
good. Our industry needs it though. It reminds me of Shelley from out east with Women's Trucking Federation of Canada. Same type of passion, advocacy. This is a must. It's not a, yeah, that'd be nice one day. It's no, now is the time. And I just, yeah, I get jacked when you talk like that because I'm like, yeah, like I get dizzy because I shake my head so much. So it's awesome. So I guess with all of that said, which is super powerful, Heidi, when you're working with carriers, companies for job postings, do you find people are receptive to include some of that? Open for new hires, or very interested in women coming to the industry, anything like, I don't know what the right language is, but something like that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. In the role that I was in, I wouldn't stand for anything else. So they had to be. Good luck telling me that you're not accepting that candidate because of any sort of protected grounds. You're not. So I think it's important to have people in an HR role or a recruitment role that really understand the current progression in legislation and protect those grounds, because it's not really an option anymore. You cannot discriminate based on that. So, you know, and then of course there's ways that people can try to get around it. But, you know, I wouldn't come in with a candidate saying you have to hire this person. What you're going to do is, of course, focus on the same strengths that you would in any other candidate, right? And I don't even acknowledge the fact that they're a female. You know, it shouldn't even be brought up because it's not a thing. So yeah, I found that in my role, a lot of it was educating some of the hiring managers on that. And well, I was very lucky to be in a place where they were understanding of that, or at least the managers I was working with at the time. And as far as, you know, I think it varies from company to company too. So, you know, there may be some HR leaders listening who do have that struggle. The transport industry tends to be one of the last to catch up with some of this diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff, unfortunately. And there is still old ways of thinking that are pretty integrated. So yeah, I'd say that those who are in charge in management do need to be really looking for that, because that's how you're going to bring this talent in. That's how you're going to retain people. And yeah, okay, it's one thing to recruit someone and present their resume and get them into the company, but do you have the culture that's going to support that? And do you reprimand coworkers who are creating a hostile work environment for that person? Do you have the right safety protocols in place, for example, for a woman who is working at night and maybe attacked by someone on site? Like, these are the sorts of things, and anyone could be attacked, right? But unfortunately, women tend to be victimized that way a little bit more. So yeah, definitely I would present, first of all, to answer your question, present that candidate the way that you would any other candidate, bring out their strengths, but then also to really make sure the leaders are looking out for those and are really on board with that initiative from start to finish, not just the hiring process, but afterwards as well.
Power. This is good.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
like I like how it wasn't an option. It's not an option because that's absolutely true. And being a male in transportation, I see that we're lagging and I see it's getting better. But I just encourage both of you guys, well, gals, to continue to be vocal in this space because it's making a difference. But that was awesome. I appreciate that. Wow, it gets me stoked.
Whoop, whoop.
So I guess I'll ask Heidi another question then, is when a carrier, someone looking for a driver, since we're in the driving space right now, is there important things to include in a job posting aside from I need someone to take product A to product B? And if, I guess, what are, you don't have to list them all because I know there's lots of scenarios, but what are some milestones or I guess key pieces that need to be included in a job posting if it's online or if you're just word of mouth, important details?
Yeah, I mean, if you look out there, there's quite a variety of different job postings. I know that Indeed.com provides some pretty good coaching. Like that they have 80% of the market. That's why I bring them up. I shouldn't endorse them that way. Darn. Indeed owes me money. But I just say that because I did receive some good coaching from them in terms of the algorithms, right? And how their algorithms are going to push forward your job postings and make sure that people are seeing them. But in terms of like how to attract candidates and set yourself apart, I'd say that after COVID, like, let's just assume that everybody's been a little bit traumatized by COVID. So like, honesty is the best policy. Be honest, put your rates out there. If you don't think your rates are good, then maybe you should think about that. If you can't change them, put them out there. There might be someone who really needs a job and they might be attracted more towards your company culture. So don't be afraid to post your rates in your job posting. That's the number one thing that candidates want to know when they apply for a job. Even if your rates are on the lower side, it doesn't mean that they're going to turn around. And then on top of that, do post things about your company culture. You know, don't just say that you're an inclusive work environment. They're going to find out right away if you're not. You know, really be that. Show them that in the interview process, and make sure that your managers have been updated on that initiative. I know I'm pushing the manager thing, but it is really important. It comes from the top down. So when we get to that job description again and what you're posting online, make sure that you are being honest. And if you don't have a good, I heard a great recruiter that I follow talk about this. Shelley Billinghurst had mentioned that, you know, if you don't have a great diversity, equity, and inclusion program, don't be putting that in your ad as if you do. They're going to find that out, you know, pretty quickly, but find something else. Maybe you're a family-friendly environment. Maybe you allow dogs in the office. Maybe you allow drivers to bring their dogs, bring their kids. Find those things, talk to your drivers, see why they work for you. And, you know, maybe they get steady work throughout the year and it's not seasonal. Put that in the ad, and then at least you're having those positives in there and they're honest positives.
Incredible. I like that. Honesty. Sorry, how do you say that again? Honesty is the best
policy.
Yeah, I like that. No, I appreciate that. Oriana, is there anything that you wanted to, I guess, from your, I know you similar expertise, but just maybe a different lens, but anything else that you feel carriers could be including on postings?
Yeah, I mean, it's more or less what they shouldn't be including in some aspects. The drug and alcohol testing is a big thing now. And we got to make sure that one thing I've noticed is carriers will ask for the job posting and potentially ask for it too far in advance where it would actually potentially be a violation of human rights. So you want to make sure how you word things and where you're putting it. You want to make sure it's in the right place. Like, unless you're hiring that person or you're looking, this can be a pre-drug test, you know, okay, here's your job offer, conditional to employment, you have to pass this. But you cannot get that prior to hire kind of thing. And it's more or less, I would caution against certain wording, right? And there's so many things out there now that confuse employers about, you know, being gender equitable and certain terminology. I think, you know what, we're worrying too much about that. I think being cautious is very important. And definitely, obviously, we're not going to just put, you know, all men drivers were hired. No. but to a point, we don't need to get crazy about it. But just being cautious of certain wording so that it doesn't put you in a potential violation of human rights, or, where you can get some kind of class action and lawsuit, because there's been quite a few claims recently where somebody's posted something and it gave off the feel, or it pretty much mentioned that it's just hiring for men, or they're asking for a drug test prior to, and these employers have been in trouble and they've gotten fines, and it's just certain wording. I mean, people have questions, they can reach out to myself or Heidi, whoever, how to best produce that. The other thing I would say is a great way for job advertisements that are maybe not looked at enough would be through social media. People take that for granted. And I mean, a lot of companies are doing that, but in the transport industry, we seem to be a little bit more behind, like I had said, in some aspects. And, make an Instagram account, make a Twitter, have a Twitter, have Facebook. I know it can be dwindling, but you want to reach all those different demographics. And if we're going to say we're not looking for just males or females, or, a certain age bracket, but if you want to reach all of those demographics, as opposed to just having a posting on Indeed or on, your website, it's best to portray that and reach all types of demographics. And that way you can do that through social media. It's powerful that way. So definitely recommend, and even putting those links in your job descriptions if that allows for that. So.
Totally. Yeah, I love social media. I love the well, sometimes I'll aimlessly scroll, but I like the reach, and every platform obviously has a different ability to reach. And I think the conversation between LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter will vary. They do vary. I like that I like impacting people, and that's really what my heart's cry is I want to have an impact. And when we have these conversations, and I know I share it, the feedback that I've been receiving from the most random spots in the corners of Facebook, where I'm like, oh, okay, because you never know who else is going to share. Or I love in LinkedIn where, like, if Heidi liked one of my posts and me and Oriana weren't friends on LinkedIn, they can still see that, oh, she liked that post, so someone else sees it. So for the exposure factor, and even just, it's easier to have a Facebook page than there's a website sometimes. Yes. It's free versus maybe it costs you $1,000 or whatever it costs to build like a decent one. Yeah, I think there's a lot of credit there too, where a lot of our industry is 2 to 10 carriers speaking in Alberta, where maybe the budget and the time isn't thinking in the clouds like major carriers could. It's more so, how do I find these 3 people? Obviously, Heidi, I want you to speak more on that in a bit, but it's just, yeah, I think it's really powerful. So I appreciate both of those. So thanks for saying that. And yeah, if Indeed is listening, then make sure that you contact Heidi for her royalty too. So that's fair.
I want to add to that social media comment, Oriana, that you got to think about these class 1 drivers that are out on the road all day, every day, away from their families of 5 children. Guess what? They're posting and they're seeing the world. They're seeing some pretty cool stuff, beautiful sunsets. So now they have this tool, Facebook is big, to post that beautiful sunset with their truck, and then everyone's commenting. Recruiters, get out there, look at the comments, see what kinds of other drivers are commenting, make friends with the drivers. And first of all, it's going to tell you a lot about retention. What's energizing these people, what's getting them going. And second of all, those are maybe potential candidates that you're seeing out there.
That's awesome. That's a great point. I know. And on that too, I like how we're just spiraling into it. That's what you said, Josh. We could just keep going.
Yeah.
Actual managers too. We're talking about the driver shortage a lot, and driver shortage. Well, I mean, from what I have understood, a lot of employers aren't having a driver shortage. When they're recruiting, they're finding a lot of applications. There are some, though, the smaller, I'd say, carriers to medium, that may be struggling, and I think it might just be their name that's out there. And that's a challenge. They're saying, no, we're not finding drivers. A lot of it is qualified drivers, but they're just not getting the applicants. Well, part of that is social media. It's an amazing way to do that. You're not getting your name out there. So why would a driver apply to, Jack's Transport when they actually have never heard of you, number one? Number two, they probably think you're just some small fry and and even if you are, you're going to pay like crap because you're probably not posting it on your ad. So those are things that, even though you might not be, you don't have to be on social media every 5 seconds. Yet there's so many programs that'll help that, you just create posts for the month and they'll do it on a schedule for you. Just to get your name out there so that when these drivers are strolling, when just regular candidates are strolling, they see your name pop up. They might not give a hoot at that moment, but okay, they keep seeing it. Oh, okay, Jack's transport. Oh, okay. They see a picture with family. Jack, oh, we're hiring Jack. Okay, bet. That's when you're going to get drivers. Then that's when you're going to get the referrals. And people are going to say, you know what? I actually did apply here. It's amazing. And, vice versa. But when you don't have your name out there, you're a nobody. And unfortunately, in this day and age, even though I myself, I delete Facebook here and there because I want a break. But, having your name out there, and especially for business, is big, especially when you want to hire and find qualified candidates.
Yeah, I agree. And just speaking from experience, I think it's a great way to celebrate current employees. So drivers, dispatchers, operations too, because it's public. And I remember listening to a podcast a long time ago that kind of taught me of this mindset, but there's a company in Australia, they build websites, and Monday to Thursday, it's all business. Friday, it's all show us what you got. And then they celebrate whoever wins that Friday by developing, if it's an app, if it's an add-on to a current client's website, it's all just, let's celebrate it. And I forgot the word was that they used. It wasn't the retention side, but the employee engagement side skyrocketed because it's a little bit of competition. Same with drivers on the road. They want the best picture. Look at my truck. Look at that sunset. Look at that mountain peak. Look at that, what I just avoided, whatever. But also then, the recognition, that's what they bring home to their family and friends too. Because they can say, hey, look, that's me right there. And I think knowing as professionals, we like when the boss says, hey, good job. It's even more so when your family can see, hey, you're getting celebrated here. This is cool because grandma 9 provinces away is now celebrating it. She just told everyone here, or Uncle Steve here, or whoever. I talk with my hands. But yeah, I think that's super important. And just to kind of, like you mentioned, we can spiral into a really good conversation. That's really important. And it's neat when you look, again, good and bad, I guess, of the internet is it doesn't go away. But if say you're hiring today and you're not hiring for 6 months, you have 6 months of good quality, basically people bragging about your organization. So when you are hiring again, so those that are listening, maybe you're like, well, I'm not hiring right now. Okay, chances are you will one day. And now you have a good track record publicly. So yeah, I think I didn't think of that going into this conversation, the value of social. So I appreciate both of you guys' perspective on that.
Yeah, well, it's just, and it's even, I've done in sales, when I've done some recent training in it. And, when you're making these calls, or cold calls, as we call them, you're making these calls, and you're probably not gonna get somebody who wants to talk to you. They might tell you to piss off how many times, but even if you're leaving a voicemail or you are utilizing your name, it's important to use your first and your last name and the company. Okay. And then it's constant repetition. It's the constant, okay, maybe 5 months down the road, or 3 months or 3 weeks from now, I'm going to send him an email. Okay. But that same name, your name, and that company name's in there. Okay. Then you're going to follow up again, and you're going to do maybe a video chat on LinkedIn and say hi, but your same name and that same company name. Whether that person buys or wants to talk to you, they're going to eventually start seeing, that business name. And there's going to be, it's how people are we're motion that way. Constant repetition, seeing it, and social media is a big way. And that is how you're going to get your traction out there for your company. And that is how you are going to be known. And that's how you're going to attract drivers or any candidates, because they're going to know who you are. They might not have talked to you, but they know that, oh yeah, I've seen this, or I've heard of it. They might not remember that you called them and left a voicemail. But when they see that on, social media or Facebook scrolling by, oh yeah, I know them. Then they might take a look at that website and see, hey, you know what? Oh, drivers, we're hiring for drivers. Oh, great. They might apply. So, it's just the power of constant repetition, and that we're wired that way, and getting your name out there. It's that feedback, right?
We call it pattern recognition theory.
That's right. You said it better than me. It's Saturday brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, so let's turn the conversation a little bit then. So a carrier does a good job creating exposure, creating a safe environment, an inclusive environment. When a driver applies, Heidi, I'll direct this one to you because we were touching on it before we were recording. How important is it that they have a up-to-date current, well, updating current, same thing. So a current filled out complete resume. Where's the value for a driver applying there?
Yeah, well, from what I've seen in applicants, drivers do not care about their resume. And I don't know if this has and I'm sorry to those ones that have a wonderful resume, by the way. That doesn't mean everyone. I've seen some perfectly wonderful resumes. So maybe I'll talk about, first of all, what a good resume would look like. The number one thing that I looked at as a recruiter, and it's going to be different by industry, but when you're recruiting Class 1 drivers, what is their experience? How many years of Class 1 experience do you have? Some companies can hire new drivers, some can't. Us, for what I was hiring for, it's multi-trailers that we're hauling. You need so many hours, so many years under your belt to even be covered by our insurance. So no, I cannot consider you as and I know that's hard for new drivers, but anyway, put how many years you've been working as a Class 1 driver. Second of all, highlight your experience. So what company were you with? Because I probably know what that company does, or I can look it up. What sorts of equipment were you hauling? How many trailers? In what industry? Were you hauling off-road, on-road? Was it long haul, short haul, LTL? What I need to kind of try to visualize what you were doing and how it could fit. A recruiter is going to be already looking for how your experience might fit into the role that they're trying to fill. So, you don't have to lie. The best thing that you can do is tell the truth about what your experience was. So first of all, experience, company, how long you worked there, the dates. If you have any employment gaps, because some people don't realize that with some of the higher compliance requirements, you need to be able to speak for, if you're crossing the borders, where you've been in the last 3 years. So if you were off for a year with an injury, maybe you don't want to share right away on your resume that it was an injury, but you can just put between these dates, January 2019 to January 2020, leave of absence. Maybe we can talk about that in our interview or when you feel that it's good, right? But put that you were doing something, don't just leave a random gap, because we're actually required to fill in that time and account for where you were. And you need to prepare to prove where you were in the last 3 years. And that's really hard for some people. I don't remember where I worked 3 years ago. Well, you do,
Yes.
or, have your record of employment ready or whatever it is. And that's hard. I know that a lot of drivers have been, laid off from their positions. They work for a bad company, had a horrible experience, a horrible boss. That's when it becomes hard. I get that people don't want to talk about that, but think about a way that you can put it down just so the recruiter can kind of follow where you've been and you won't get looked over that way. So experience is number one. A lot of the times I'll see a bunch of skills listed. That's nice, but at the end of the day, I'm going to look first of all at your experience. Where did you work? Do you actually have the Class 1 experience that my posting is asking for? So those would be kind of, I'd say, the key takeaways without getting too far into the weeds.
That's incredible. Okay, no, I appreciate that. And then I guess if someone has, and if the answer is no, that's fine. But if they don't have the experience you need, is it worth their time to still send something just to build a relationship with you for possible future postings? Or from a recruitment standpoint, is it better just to, if you don't meet this, then apply to the next one kind of thing?
Well, I'd always say to apply. I mean, if it's a 3-year requirement, it's a cross-border job, you don't have that, don't bother. But that's kind of the only one. I've had different candidates that let's say they had 2 years of experience. They reached out, they actually talked to me. It was a little different when we were in person before COVID and things like that. But if I had a conversation, if they seemed like a great driver, if they had a completely clear abstract, I would make note of that and get back to them a year later, or maybe they get back to me, and certainly consider that person down the road. So, it's you never know what's needed and what could be an opportunity. And just like Oriana was saying, with making the connections online and social media, there's an application is still a connection. So Yes, I'd say still apply. Write a cover letter. You see about 2% of drivers writing a cover letter. If you write me a cover letter, I'm looking at it. Don't make it too long. Say what you need to say. Have you looked at my website? But you're going to get recognized if you write up a cover letter, and not just the same one to every employer.
Make it company specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can call most trucking companies and get the name of the recruiter pretty easily.
I actually haven't heard that before, and I made a note. That's really good advice. I appreciate that.
The recruiters are going to hate me, but you can. It's pretty easy.
Okay, good. Oriana, was there anything that you would like to, I guess, elaborate on from your perspective on that?
You asked the question again, so it jogs my ADHD brain.
It's funny as I moved.
It's just loading.
It's loading.
We were talking about the importance of a resume, and Heidi mentioned about the experience, and skill set's nice, but experience is key. And then we were just finishing just with respect to a cover letter, which is, like I said, I made a note because I haven't heard that before. So, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would say that even if I myself don't always use a cover letter.
Same.
It just depends on, to me, you know why? Because a lot of these employers overdo their application process, and they want you to submit a resume, then they want you to do an application on Indeed, but then they want you to go onto their website, do an application, then they want you to do a cover letter. And then, it's just, and after a while you're like, man, is this a job I really freaking want? Like, I don't know, whatever, maybe I'm just looking for food, right? Just kidding. But, to me, I think a big thing is if you don't have a cover letter is before you even do your experience in your resume, put a blob or a blurb, whatever you want to call it, about who you are, what you do. So, I'm Oriana, 10 years of labor relations, workforce experience, have experience in the following, and, did save the transportation industry $3 million on WCB claim costs, whatever, something like that to grab their attention. Now that's not for drivers, but whether it's in something safety, you won the driver of the year award, through your company, through the associations, that, you are an awarded kind of safety oriented person. You help somebody on the side of the road. I don't know. Make yourself stand out. And I think that's a good way that maybe if you're fearful of creating a cover letter, then it's just a good way to have that on before, do some pointers, why you like your job, what type of driving you've done, why you like it, and things like that. And I apologize if you hear whining because it's my dog. So
I thought maybe it was mine for a second.
No, I got a puppy, so.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's good advice too. So I appreciate that. But just kind of as we come to a close, first off, this conversation, it's been really powerful. I like hearing, I find it takes the first couple of minutes for people to really give you the juice, and you both really, I like the passion. I saw the eyes light up. So everyone that's watching on YouTube, I'm sure you can say, yeah, like it's just, there's a lot of really like applicable stuff, but really impactful stuff that was shared, which I really appreciate. So I'll kind of start with you, Oriana, first, and then we'll go to Heidi with the same question. But as you continue to navigate in our industry, what do you hope your legacy is? What's the goal?
My legacy is to help as many people as I can. My legacy is to see change, and to see a change every day, and to hopefully have an impact within industry, outside industry, with employers, and getting people into those types of roles. Really, it's changing the dynamics and the mindset of employers, workers, people that aren't in the industry that struggle to know about the industry.
Yeah.
What is the trucking industry? People just think it's trucks. That's something that I get excited about, and going to schools and talking to kids about, talking to people that maybe never would have thought about a role within the industry. Things like that, and hopefully change the dynamics of, how technology can help employers and to help their operational aspects, reduce costs, implement implement something so that you can allow your employees and yourself to do the jobs that you actually might want to do and that are required of you to do, but you're spending way too much time doing the mundane tasks that maybe a system could do to fill that gap, right? And it's not about, people are afraid, oh, robots are going to take over. It's going to take over it's going to get rid of Joan in HR. Hell no, it won't. I'm just saying you need something that actually helps you to do your job better. And that'll even actually help people like drivers transition into roles like dispatch, because there might not be the best training out there for them, or if they don't take it, but maybe, you know, somebody at Bison wants to transition one of their owner operators or their drivers into a management role. There are systems that can help with that, you know, to help train them to make their lives easier and get them into that. You're still going to have the oversight of having a mentor or somebody to help you in that role. But if you actually have the systems in place, it makes it a hell of a lot easier. Totally.
No, that's powerful. I appreciate that very much. So ask Heidi, as you continue to navigate in your space, what's your outcome? What's your legacy that you're building? What do you believe that is?
Oh, well, my big thing is to help the managers help their people. So I do want to help the people. I think the biggest way to do that is to help the managers help them grow. Managers can no longer hide behind the old way of doing things. I mean, if you're a manager out there who's doing that, good luck. It's not going to last for long. Technology is coming in. Learn the technology. You don't have to become a software engineer. Learn how to use a computer. Learn how to use e-logs, maybe take some courses in how to work with data. It will really help you in managing the new things that are coming in and manage the employees and mentor the employees, because our class 1 drivers, and I'd say the same thing to class 1 drivers, is you no longer can avoid technology. So, you know, learn the basics, learn how to use your email and things like this that'll help you in applying. And so when I say I want to help the managers help drivers, I do really enjoy the aspect of helping drivers learn to use an email, maybe set up an email so that now they can apply for jobs and embrace some of the basic technologies that are coming in, because you don't need a lot, but I think a lot of it is a change in attitude. You know, I don't want to use technology. Well, you have to use technology. So learn the basics. Your job's going to still be the same of being out there on the road. So I really want to be a part of that, and the integration of tech into the transport industry and just that user experience and how we best, and then with the technology companies that are coming in, I like to be involved with them too, is like your user experience with class 1 drivers is going to be real different. So make sure that you're designing the best product that's going to really help them do their job instead of hinder them, because I know that attitudes to technology can be somewhat negative because it's a change. Nobody likes change. And so I hope to kind of impact the attitudes to change, I guess, in regards to tech entering the transport industry.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a really great initiative too, because it is exactly what's happening right now. Is we are going through, I don't know that if it, well, there won't be an end date, but disruption is here. And yeah, started with the ELD mandate actually, which is today, federal carriers in Canada to, yeah, there's a lot of, and I know that could be, if we wanted to do round 2, we could talk on the importance of tech and the survival. I think a lot of businesses will realize that soon, like, oh crap, I got to get my ducks in a row. So, but yeah, that could be for another day, because yeah, this conversation has been incredible. So Heidi, then back to you after Oriana, but whatever you're comfortable sharing, if someone wants to get in touch with you, ask you more questions, what's kind of the best way that people can do that?
Find me on LinkedIn. It's Heidi Pittman. Yeah, I love making connections on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to reach out to me directly. And I will definitely talk to you if you reach out.
Okay, awesome. And how about you, Oriana? How can people get in touch with you?
It would be LinkedIn as well. It'd be my preferred. Facebook, I kind of took off for right now. Also Instagram, Workforce Development of Canada. You can find me there. And through the Truck Focus podcast and Pivotal Compliance, Josh has been gratuitous enough to have me be involved with himself and a lot of other industry leaders and, getting articles out there. But I might not have the most articles out just yet, but I definitely think that you can contact me at any point, even through email. So it would be oriana.kolonsky@outlook.com. You have any workforce questions, labor relations, human resource questions, I can answer those for you and help you, as well as if I don't know the answer, I will find that answer for you. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Heidi and Oriana, today has been awesome. And I just appreciate your sacrifice of time to be here, because I really do feel it's making an impact in our industry. And that's, again, like I mentioned at the very beginning, what this podcast is all for, is introducing people I can respect as experts that are creating a change. So just keep doing what you're doing. But yeah, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.